This is a comment written by Tom Phillips, who's part of the Healthy Building Research team at the University of California's Davis campus. And this was a comment he posted on the Fine Homebuilding website, and it's in regard to a piece Rachel Wagner did on housing resilience. And I'll put a link to this feature article, which describes a number of strategies meant to make homes livable in the kind of prolonged power outages that occur with more regular storms that we think is related to global climate change. So he writes, "Thanks for the great overview on resilient home design and retrofit, especially the weatherization, passive cooling, and indoor air quality topics. However, please include more aggressive climate adaptations measures to handle more extreme heat in both the short and long term, including measures for cooler climate zones, which are heating up faster and currently have less passive cooling measures. For example, we need more emphasis on external shading, air sealing, cool roofs, better windows, and not just insulation and glazing that are easier to include during construction and renovation. Also, overheating design guidelines and standards using future weather files should be used for mid and late century modeling of thermal and energy performance." And he includes a bunch of links that I'll also put on the podcast page. But in a nutshell, what he's saying is that we should be using trees and other shade structures to prevent our houses from heating up, selective glazing, maybe window films, awnings, these kind of things that are meant to keep a house from being dangerously hot in conditions where you can't run air conditioning or don't have it because traditionally the climate wasn't a place that you needed it. Randy and Ian, you guys both live in relatively cold places. I'm guessing there's very little thought given to passive cooling strategies. Am I right? Either one of you can.
I think where Randy and I both live, we get that brutal summer humidity. So I think at some point, at least in my adolescent life, AC became very commonplace in most homes where I live.
Yeah, I just bought every new home that I'm in, looking at whatever they all have air conditioning, even in far northern Minnesota. And it's kind of something that we need to think about a little bit differently too, because it's getting a little warmer. We're seeing a little, the warm temperatures are moving further north. I think in the next code cycle or two, I'm not going to be in climate zone 7 anymore. I'm only a couple of counties away from being in climate zone 6. And we need to change the way we're not only building, but the way also, like Patrick mentioned, thought going into how do we naturally cool or help to reduce the heating or cooling load on the structure and shade. And maybe we're going to have to go back to the old school awnings that were over all the windows that were aluminum things that kind of hung off the side of the house. Maybe that's what we have to go back to some of these structures.
What I like about that, Randy, is, we were talking about the challenges of mechanical systems with complexity. Like, there's nothing simpler than a shade awning, right, to keep the sun out of your windows.
Yeah, we should probably adopt the European styles rather than the old arched metal awnings that we strap.
Come on, nice like candy striped green, white, white awning outside your kitchen window with a little scalloped eave on it. And
you guys realize there are younger listeners of the podcast who have no idea what the heck you're talking about. None.
You know how many of those I ripped off doing window installs for Pella? Just like, oh yeah, can you get rid of that awning while you're up there? Sure, yeah, I'll just grab it and rip it off your house.
You just changed the heating load or cooling load of that structure.
Like, we put in these new windows, but man, it's really hot in here now.
Well, when there's a lot of new development going around Newtown, Connecticut, where I live, and like many places, they were former farm fields or orchards that are now subdivisions, and there are no trees anywhere. There is no thought given to solar gain, oftentimes south-facing or west-facing windows.
There's thought given to
maximizing.
It's
a whole elevation of west or south-facing windows to heat up this house, and no thought is given to that stuff.
There's only thought given how to maximize the profit potential of that former cornfield. That's the only thought there's given to anything.
Rachel is, the original author of that piece, Rachel Wagner. She's a good friend of mine. She lives in Duluth. She is
Well,
big
that
on site.
explains it.
Yeah, she's big on sighting the houses, right?
Yeah.
She's out there with a compass, and as a matter of fact, a lot of the classes she teaches, she'll as part of the package of the course, you get a compass, so you're able to kind of
Nice.
turn the house to the maximize not only the heat, the heat that you get in the wintertime, but the shading of maybe the local tree or whatever that happens to help with the cooling load. So, yeah.
There was one quote from Rachel's article that I wanted to read on the podcast because I think it's a great one sentence thing that builders should keep in their head. And it's my definition of resilience is the ability to withstand and or recover quickly and fully from harm, stress, shock, or damage.
A really good definition. Yeah.
Who doesn't want that, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Ian, your clients, do they leave enough money in the budgets for shade structures, pergolas, maybe selectively glazed windows, landscaping, things that can help make their homes more comfortable in the heat of summer?
On the new home that we built that Christy wrote about in the current issue of Fine Homebuilding, she's got some great parts to that article talking about the shade structures and the awnings and the importance of the landscape design. But a lot of times on the urban remodels that we do, typically no, because we're in such a dense urban area. You're already trying to maximize the footprint of an addition, or changing windows around typically for view shed reasons when we're doing an interior remodel.
Well, I hope listeners who have thoughts on this subject will write in with their thoughts on passive cooling or, strategies for making houses comfortable in a warming planet. So, Randy, you want to give us a little taste of what you saw your friends doing out in the Midwest? What's going on out there?
Yeah, I'll talk about the project that Travis and Joe have going. I think there's going to be an article coming up on Green Building Advisor, excuse me, that'll talk a little bit more detail. But so the customers were, they're actually a commercial deconstruction company. So they're taking big buildings apart and old, a lot of them are older buildings, and they're salvaging as much of the material as they could. Well, they decided to take a bunch of it and turn it into their homes. So they're using reclaimed polyisocyanurate insulation. They actually made their own zip R out of the assembly, which requires an engineer, just so you know, if you're going to do that, especially at 2.5 inches of insulation, you want to make sure that you got, I think it was 2 inches of insulation, that you've got no, it was 2.5 inches of insulation, that you've got enough fastening, because you're screwing through from the OSB into the framing. So that's different than what Huber does. Right. So just so you're aware of that. But they were reusing EPS for unvented roof assembly. But the EPS that they had was like 12 inches thick. And that's what thickness of it is, but it's the best practice not to lay single layers of thick insulation on your roof. You want to use multiple layers, right? Offset the seams. Well, they bought an old, or somehow ended up with an old ping pong table. And where the net goes, they put a hot wire, and they cut a U shape out of the part of it so that they could stand kind of closer to the hot wire, and then they would slide this insulation, this thick insulation, to make them 2 inches thick rather than 12 inches thick. So we got a little bit of video of what they did with that. The coolest thing that they had, well, it's different. But they ended up with a windmill tube. The structure to hold a large windmill, it must be 100 feet tall. I mean, this thing, they laid it down off the backside of the house, dug basically what looks like a big walkout area. It's going to become part of the house. They're going to backfill the whole thing, so it's underground, and it's become their wine cellar. But it's like 100 feet long, and it's big enough where I mean, it's probably 10 feet round. It's huge inside. And at the very end of it, they're going to put a hobbit door. So you go out the top, the far end of it, 100 feet away from the house, and they've got this wonderful view where it's, they're kind of high. They're overlooking this big prairie area. You get out to the end and a little patio or whatever, and you grab your bottles or whatever you want on the way and go sit in the patio at the end. Kind of unique.
I hope to get an invite to that place because that sounds amazing. Oh my gosh. Wow. Well, if you folks have any amazing or very mainstream projects that you'd like us to know about, I hope you'll write to the Fine Homebuilding Podcast email box, or if you have thoughts on the show or questions to ask us, I hope you will. Wow, it was a good show, guys. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.